Hi everyone, it's Stephanie and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be creating a winter themed card and I'm going to be using the new Warm and Feathered Hug stamp set. This is our newest stamp set from Stacy Akula and I love these little owl images. And for some reason, as soon as I saw them, I immediately thought of a wedding card. I thought it would look really cute to have two of the images together and have one be the bride and one be the groom. So that's what we're going to do in today's card. So the first thing I'm going to do is stamp out the images onto some Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock. And I'm going to use Extreme Black ink. This is a Copic friendly ink since I am going to be using Copic markers to color in the images. And I'm using my MISTI to do the stamping so that I can stamp them twice so I get a really nice solid black outline. Once I have them all stamped out, I am going to do some Copic coloring on them, and I'm going to keep the coloring pretty simple. I'm going to do both of the owls the same gray colors, and I'm just using some warm grays to do this coloring. I'm using warm gray 1, 3, and 5, I believe, and I'm just going to start off with my lightest color first and lay down the color just to saturate my paper, and then I'm going to go in with my darker and medium colors and just add a little bit of shading and blending to the images. I am speeding this up just so that we can get through the coloring pretty quickly, but it's just some basic 3-color blending, and it just provides a little bit of shading and shadow so that they kind of look a little bit more dimensional and not so flat. And you can definitely color these owls any color you wish. If you prefer browns, that would work too, and if you have any other gray colors besides the warm grays, you can definitely use those as well. For their faces and their tummies, I'm going to be using some very light brown colors. I'm going to use E50 to start with, which is just kind of like a beigey brown. And I'm going to lay down that initial color there just to once again saturate the paper. And then I'm going to come in with an E30, which is just a tiny bit darker than the E50. And I'm just going to add a tiny bit of that on the edges of the eyes and at the very top of the tummy. I'm going to finish off the coloring right now with a YR18 marker for their beaks and their feet, and then I'm actually going to set this aside and I'm going to create the background next. I wasn't 100% sure what colors I wanted to use for the toque and the scarf on the images, and I wanted to create the background first so I kind of knew what color they were going to go up against before I added the color. Now for the background, we're going to create a snowy sky, and I want it to be really saturated with color. Now I am putting some regular Distress inks on here, and you can see that I'm getting a very uneven blend. I'm kind of going pretty quickly, and I'm going kind of heavier with my hand than I normally do. But for a snowy sky, I actually kind of like having an uneven blend because I think it just adds a little bit of textured look to the actual scene. And I'm eventually going to completely cover this with snow, so you'll barely even see any of that blending anyway. So I first went in with some peacock feathers, and then I went in with some wilted violet just to add a little bit of purple to the background. And then I finished off with chipped sapphire to add a little bit of darker edges on the outside. I'm then going in with some water to do some distressing, and you can see when I put the water onto the paper, the Distress ink reacts with it and it creates these really cool water splotches. I like to do that as the base layer for my snow, and then once I have that on there, I go ahead and add some white acrylic paint that I've mixed with water, and I just use a paintbrush to do this, and I just flick that onto the background. Now I want the snow to be really small and to really cover this background, so anytime I get some really large splotches, I'm using a paper towel and kind of pressing that into the background, and then I'm just going to continue on adding the snow. And you can see here that I'm really covering that background. I kind of want it to look like kind of a blizzardy background and just have a lot of that snow detail. Once I'm happy with it, I'm going to set it aside to dry. And now that I can see the background beside the images, I decided on the colors I wanted to use for the hat and the scarf. So for the hat, I'm using some green colors. I used YG17, YG23, and YG01. And then I used a little bit of sea grays to do a little bit of blending on the little pom-pom to make it look like it was white. And then for the scarf, I'm using RV14, RV13, and RV21. So I'm keeping it once again pretty simple. I'm just adding those basic colors, and I'm not even really doing a lot of shading. I'm just laying down the two colors, the dark and the light, so that there's a little bit of contrast in both the scarf and the hat. Now once I had that done, I went ahead and die cut the images. I die cut 2 snowdrifts. You can see these here with the stitch detail on the top. And I also stamped out a sentiment that we're going to use on the card. The sentiment is from the Together Forever stamp set. This is a great stamp set that includes a bunch of wedding and anniversary themed sentiments, and I thought this one here paired really nicely with the images. So I stamped it onto some white cardstock, and I'm just trimming it down in my paper trimmer here, and we're going to add it to the top of the card, kind of hanging off of the right-hand side. I do want it to have a little bit of a decorative edge, so I decided to use my scissors and just create a slant on one end. And then I'm going to set that aside, and we're going to attach it a little bit later once I have the rest of the scene together. Now, since this is a wedding themed card, I want to dress up our bride and groom and make them look like they're dressed for the occasion. So for the bride, I decided to create a little veil out of vellum, and I'm just going to put that in behind her. I also wanted to create a little headpiece that I'm going to add onto the top of her with some jewels, just to kind of look like she's wearing a tiara with the vellum veil. Now I am going to assemble everything here, but you're going to see I'm going to make a little change to this a little bit later because I decided you couldn't really see the veil when I had everything assembled. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and leave that on there, and I'm going to add these little clear droplets across the top of her head. Now I just put some clear matte multi-medium on there that's just a nice strong liquid glue. I just ran that across the top, and then I'm adding the little jewels on top of there. I'm using tweezers just because it's easier to kind of place everything, and then I lined them up and got them all in position and let those dry. Once I had that done, I put some adhesive onto the back of both of my little characters here, and now I'm adding them into the snow drifts here so it looks like they're standing in the snow. So I'm just kind of positioning them together so they're side by side, and then once I have them on there, that's when I'm going to realize that I don't really love the veil because I don't really feel like you can see it that well, so I decided I wanted to add a little bit of soft pink color to it. So I very carefully removed the pieces from the card since I had already adhered them on, and I'm adding some color to the veil with a pink Copic marker. This is an R20, which is just a really soft pinkish red color, and coloring on the vellum is going to soften the color even more, so it's going to be a really nice soft pink color. Once I had it colored on there, I put everything back together, and now I'm adhering her back to the card. And I was much happier with this veil than I was with the first one, just because I feel like you can actually see it, and I like the really soft pink look that it adds in behind her. Once I had the characters on there, I went ahead and cut out a piece of silver sparkle cardstock, and I layered that under my sentiment strip just to add a little bit of sparkle to the finished design. I added that directly to my card, and I cut off the excess with my scissors. I added a bunch of sequins to the background to kind of look like snow, and then I stamped and colored a little bow tie from the Hog Heaven stamp set that we could add to our groom. I figured if our bride is all dressed up, the groom needs a little bit of decorative elements as well, and I thought the bow tie was a really cute touch. I did cut it out with my scissors so it didn't have a white border, and then I adhered it directly onto him with some liquid glue, and I colored it to match his toque. And now that our panel is complete, we can go ahead and add it to our card base. So this is an A2 size card base that I created from tickled pink cardstock. And now I'm going to just add a little bit of Stardust Stickles to the center of all of the sequins just to kind of fill those in and cover the hole and add a little bit of sparkle to each of those. And then once I have that done, our card is complete and we have this really cute winter themed wedding card. This would be great if you're attending a winter wedding. I just think it's really cute with the characters that we've added on there. And you can definitely create this for an anniversary as well. Or you could take out all of the wedding elements and just create the scene and have it be for a completely different occasion. I also added a little bit of crystal glaze to each of their beaks just to add a little bit of shine to those, and then our card is complete. All of the supplies I've used are linked in the video description below. I hope this gave you some ideas and got you inspired to create with the new Warm and Feathered Hug stamp set. As always, I appreciate you being here and I look forward to seeing you in another video soon. Thanks so much for watching.